Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic today. Let's discuss. Serious. What's the scariest or most horrifying situation that you've found yourself in? Please remember to like, share yours, and subscribe. It's 3 p.m., and I text my roommate about something pedantic. She doesn't answer. Throughout my work shift until 10:30, I'm repeatedly checking my phone to no avail. Something you should understand about my roommate. This girl texts back in minutes, if not an hour. I know something is wrong. I get home to a dark apartment. Maybe she's at school working on a project. It's almost time for finals. She could have gone out with friends. Her phone could have died. I take a few breaths and shower. At 1 a.m., she hasn't said anything and is nowhere to be found. I start to get really worried now because this is so unbelievably not like her. My first thought is to go into her room to check if her laptop is gone, probably the best indicator that she went to her mom's house, a friend's house, or school. The laptop is sitting on her desk, along with a spilled bottle of rum and 2 empty pill bottles. I rush into her bathroom. There's vomit in her toilet. Everything else in the apartment is eerily normal. No notes, no misplaced items, no destruction, no sign of struggle. Calling the police for the first time is a surreal thing. I had to have been disassociating when I showed them my only tangible picture of her, a framed photo of us in cosplay, not necessarily helpful. It starts to rain. I wonder if her body is in a ditch, soaked in filthy runoff. That night I sleep on the couch, unevenly and poorly. The next day at 1 p.m., it's the 24-hour mark since I last heard from her. It's then I realize I have to call her abusive mother to ask for help. The phone company tells us that she called 911 at 4:30 the previous day. Her GPS shows that she's at the local emergency room. She doesn't remember me rushing to her hospital bedside, and she doesn't remember me crying and apologizing. She does remember them forcing her to drink charcoal. Over the next 3 weeks, she was held twice in 2 different mental hospitals. She came home for a day, but I had to drive her to the ER when I walk in on her trying to strangle herself. Depression is a bitch of a disease. When I was about 8 years old, I was walking through a knee-high river to the other side. I underestimated how strong the current was, and it swept me off my feet. At first, I thought it was kind of fun being dragged by the water. Seconds later, I realized the rocks are tearing my legs and arms to shreds, and I eventually got swept underwater, way above my head. Because of the current, it disoriented me, and I legitimately couldn't tell which way was up. Some stranger jumped in to save me. I would have died for sure if he hadn't come. I'm 20 years old now and haven't been in water since. Can't go anywhere near water without having a panic attack, unless it's a shower, or drink it, of course. I was hanging out with my dad and brother. My dad and I decided to go get pizza, leaving my brother to watch my kids, 2 and 3 years old. Got back from picking up the pizza and noticed the front door was cracked. I immediately asked my dad, why is the front door open? As he was a few steps ahead of me and hadn't noticed when he walked in. He hears me, looks around the living room, yells to my brother, where are the kids? My brother, who was on the computer with his back facing the door and headphones on, jerked around and starts panicking. We all run out the door screaming my kids' names, running around looking for them. I call 911 and I'm hysterically trying to explain to the operator that my toddlers are gone. It's nighttime, so it's dark. We're near a major street, and all that's running through my mind is that they've been hit by a car or picked up by some freak. I decided right then that if they were dead, then that was it for me. I wouldn't be able to continue living. My brother came around the corner with both of them in his arms. A neighbor had found them. It all lasted maybe 2 minutes, longest 2 minutes of my life. And that feeling of dread was the worst feeling ever, like my stomach, lungs, and heart had been ripped from my body. I was sobbing. I couldn't breathe, and even though I'm not a violent person, I was about to beat the shit out of my brother. But he got inside and fell to his knees and started sobbing. I could tell he felt like shit, so I couldn't hit him. The only person to eat any pizza was my youngest. The rest of us were sick to our stomachs. I went out that next morning and bought a metal lock plate and installed it up high on the door, and I never leave the house now without hearing that lock behind me. Accidents and tragedies happen. I'm very happy that this worked out, but your brother needs to know. If you're watching those kids, you can't be having headphones on with toddlers in the house so you can't hear them. My junior year of college, I moved into a house with 4 other guys. We were all in the swim team. There were a party house one Friday night. Myself and my girlfriend, however, were not drinking or participating in the party, and we were just hanging out upstairs in my room, which was in the attic. We went to bed when things started to quiet down around 4:30 to 5 a.m. Somebody screaming woke me up. I was so dazed I thought it was just some drunk, obnoxious people. My girlfriend starts to nudge me to wake up, saying she's hearing something. I look up and our alarm is blinking, indicating the power went out. Then we start hearing the smoke detectors going off. I walk out of my room into the second part of the attic where my roommate is already awake with a flashlight. We both go downstairs together. We walk through a walkway room and open the door to the hallway, only to be hit with a huge wall of black smoke. We slam the door closed and run upstairs to grab our girlfriends to let them know there's a fire and we need to get out immediately. So we run downstairs into the walkway room and bust open the window to go out into the second floor balcony. All 4 of us jump down from there and we run to the side of the house. One of our roommates is trapped at the other end of the hallway, too drunk and too out of it from all the smoke inhalation, so we start throwing rocks at his window to try to help him break the glass. I run to the front door, open it, and try to crawl under the smoke because I hear someone lying on the floor moaning. It's too dark and the smoke is way too thick to get through, so I'm forced to abandon my friend. I run out into the street and see the fire trucks on their way, so as soon as the first fireman runs out of the truck, I immediately tell him where the 2 people are that are still in the house and how to get to them. Also, that one of our friends may be sleeping in the basement. He usually does when we have parties. They drag all 3 of the guys remaining in the house and rush them to the hospital. One of the guys was declared dead on the scene. One of them was unconscious for a week, and the other was in the hospital for a week as well, however was conscious and moving around. They still do not know what caused the fire, but my theory was my friend, the one who died, was sleeping in the basement and left the PlayStation 2 running, which set off the electrical circuits, causing a fire. When I was in middle school, I missed the bus, so I decided to do the 10-mile walk home. I live in a very rural area where a canyon separates the school from my house. I decided to freestyle climb down the canyon because I thought it would be quicker. The canyon is about 850 feet deep, and I ended up getting stuck on a steep, slick slope that was about 100 feet off the ground. I thought I was stuck there and a goner, so I etched a note to my family in the sandstone cliff of the canyon. I put the date and was saying how much I love them, and I died trying to be Bear Grylls. I ended up jumping into a bush that was like 10 feet away with small scrapes and bruises, and I was able to squirm to the safety of the bottom of the canyon. That note is still there to this day, and I'll never forget that. Well, I'm very glad everything worked out for you. That was extremely dangerous, but that note hopefully is a reminder of things that happened and things that could have been. A group of my friends and I explored an abandoned asylum mental hospital a couple of years ago in the OKC metro, very unsafe at night for silly college freshmen like ourselves. The first experience we had was all of us taking our merry time enjoying the darkness and generally effing around. You have to come in through a broken window, and we were all gathered at the window just being dumb when we heard loud, echoing footsteps down the hall running toward us. We all did that, who the heck is in here? Who's messing with us? Look and turn, and after realizing we're all present and none of us are sprinting down a dark abandoned hallway, booted out of there. The second time, we could hear a group of people messing with us, jumping from around corners and such, but they never got too close. We assumed it was an animal at first, but got brave and realized it was a person. We managed to catch them, and after staring at a collection of seemingly drugged up 20-somethings who begged us for cans of paint and cigarettes, we got the not-so-good vibes. Finally, you say? And tried to leave. The leader of the haunted asylum cronies asked if we had jewelry, which we denied. He then said the creepiest thing I've heard in my life. I like jewelry. I like to take it off girls here when they sleep. We effing bolted. It's the second to last day of spring break and I'm in college. 2 good friends and I dropped 2 tabs of acid each. We all had done acid before, but this was our first time doing 2 tabs at once. I was told after the fact that apparently these tabs were each double what we thought they were. So basically, we took quadruple the dose any of us had experienced before. The plan was to just stay and chill in my apartment the entire time, and just enjoy the experience. I felt something was off when within 20 minutes I'm feeling the effects. Usually it takes me about an hour normally. I kept telling myself that because it was double what I was used to, that it was going to get a bit more intense. A bit is an understatement. One of my friends couldn't handle it well at all. He tried drinking out of a jug of water he brought to stay hydrated, only to dump the entire thing on him. This led to him going into my room and stripping naked. Now, to clarify, this friend and me had been low-key flirting and coming on to each other the entire week of spring break. My other friend went to check on him, only to come out and tell me that he's naked and waiting for you in there. I felt uncomfortable because I didn't want to force a third wheel, but I also didn't want to explicitly reject my naked friend. I was crushing on him hard, and I didn't want to ruin any chances I had. Like a true bro, my friend said he would go chill on my balcony until we were done. All of this went on while we were in the middle of the come-up, so everything's devolving, and I couldn't focus on anything to save my life. I can't think straight to even make the right choices. My thoughts were derailing. I would begin a thought and end on a whole different one. When I went into my room, I had a moment where I zoomed out and thought about the situation I was in. I should have stopped and understood we were all in over our heads. My vision started to be overwhelmed by colors, mostly faint neons that were blobs moving in fractal patterns. The only thing I could manage to see were people's eyes. I'm just going to say one thing. Sex is extremely difficult when tripping hard balls. Yeah. He managed to get off pretty quick though, but this just triggered him apparently. He soon got angry. He trashed my room and ran out still naked. I was left pretty much naked and confused on the floor of my bedroom, trying to get control of myself. The next thing I heard was my friend who was out on my balcony screaming the other guy's name. And then he just jumped off the balcony. I immediately picked myself up and ran. I lived on the 5th floor. I make it to the living room where he had balcony friend was standing in shock. All I hear is, "I can't do this, I'm sorry." And he took off. He walked through the city to my other friend's apartment that was about a 20-minute walk away. He apparently kept hearing eagles screeching after him the entire journey there. I, on the other hand, was left there naked in shock, tripping the hardest I've ever been in my life, feeling the start of a panic attack, and looking out onto the balcony where the guy I just effed had proceeded to jump off of. I don't regret it, but I did look. I have a morbid sense of curiosity, and this led to me looking out over my balcony and seeing his naked body laid out on the cement. He was positioned much like what the chalk outline of a body looks like. You know that outline you'll see in shows portraying a simple, almost cartoonish crime scene? There wasn't any blood. I stared down, not quite knowing what to do. 2 people had showed up and were telling me to call 911. I couldn't even begin to try to remember where I left my phone. I was still out of my mind at this point. The people probably realized I was useless because they told me to go put on some clothes. Yeah, still naked. I liked this idea because it seemed like something I could do at the time. My thought process was much like this in those next moments. I can't put on clothes until I clean myself. I have to look nice for the 911 people when they get here. Brilliant me then proceeded to take the worst shower of my life. The walls of my shower were melting. Most of the doors to my apartment were open and everything was flashing blue and red. All I could hear over the shower running were sirens. I just started screaming for help. The water was burning me. I felt like I was in hell. Firefighters came up to my apartment. I had to have one of them help me put clothes on myself. I couldn't focus on the task of putting on clothes without someone reminding me every few seconds. They helped me calm down as much as I could. I was convinced that they were higher dimensional beings there to help transport me to another plane of existence. I was put on a stretcher and transported to a hospital. I didn't have any underwear on. It was too hard. I didn't have any shoes. They threw my keys at me, and my phone was dead but in my hands. At one point of the ambulance ride, I was convinced I was unconscious on a surgery table fighting for my life. I thought I was in the middle of heart surgery, and this was the point where I needed to fight to stay alive. When I was in a gown in a room at the hospital, I was convinced that this was the beginning of a zombie apocalypse game, one where you wake up in a hospital bed and had to explore the area. So I started exploring the hospital for a few minutes before I got caught and sent back to my room. They checked my heart rate periodically and gave me something to counteract the high. I'm pretty sure I spent the next few hours staring at what was probably a trash bin but to me it looked like R2-D2. I also, for some reason, thought the R2-D2 trash bin was a higher dimensional being sent to watch me and judge whether or not I was ready to ascend. They charged my phone for me, got me a pair of shoes, and discharged me. I was very confused, shocked, and still high. It was midnight by that time, and I called an Uber to take me home. By this time, my friend jumping off my balcony seemed like a distant, lucid dream to me. It wasn't until I got back to my apartment to see the remnants of the scene that I believed it even happened. I went to sleep that night on my couch, looking at my rug that looked like a moving sea, and not knowing whether or not my friend was alive or not. Happy ending though. He survived the fall. His left leg was shattered, broke both his wrists, and had some cuts and bruises. No head injury. Also, none of us got into any sort of legal trouble. Wow. A woman in our salon passed out during a pedicure, like sitting straight up in her chair, unresponsive. When we tried to get her to come around, her tongue, which kind of sat halfway out of her mouth, did a roll like she was swallowing. Then she started to twitch. I immediately said, I think she's having a seizure. So they did what they could to get her to wake up. She was white as a sheet. It was the first I've seen something like that, so it made me sick to my stomach. Ambulance arrived, but she was conscious by then and was pretty dazed and sweaty, but all right from what we can tell. Her husband arrived soon after, and they went to the hospital. A week later, she sends flowers to the shop apologizing for the incident. She turned out okay and still continues her regular routine. Well, that was good of you guys to identify and help her until the paramedics arrived, and that was sweet of her to make the gesture to thank you. So, good ending.